this knowledge that is most assuredly African has been known. This is no great discovery for the scholars of Europe and the metaphysical schools of the European, including the Jehovah's Witness, who put the Egyptian wings and sun on their literature in the early 19th century. So when you're reading Yakanan and Van Sertima, and they're telling you that this knowledge came from your ancestors, they're correct. It's not a hoax. They're not trying to flatter you. It's you. And our subconscious needs to know that. It is not about pride. I think I mentioned this before. Pride is faith without knowledge. It's about knowing. Knowledge brings awareness of yourself. Awareness of self is what confidence is. And you need that to walk in the Western world successfully. Okay, I'm getting off my theme here. I feel like I'm on a soapbox. Okay, we're going to start. Let me thank you for coming in the light of the great Super Bowl stuff. If the brothers, I get on the bus, if these old dudes had studied our history like they had studied football, baseball, and we know something, man. Look at all the stats.
You mean we didn't come here for the Super Bowl?
No, my brother. But there's so many black athletes that are in that particular sport. It makes sense that the collective ego rides those athletes' talents to get some sense of self-gratification. That's what the maddening crowd is all about. They're riding the egos of the athletes. I've done that myself once in my life when Cleveland State was playing Navy, and Cleveland needed a championship. And the referees cheated them out of it, took it from them. You know. I've never been that angry about a sport since my own days of playing basketball. So I understand that level of ego. This is supposed to be about and is about the 12 powers of man, but as with Charles Fillmore being of the fraternal order of theology and metaphysics, our approach is from the black woman, who is the mother of Zodiac. Mother. Latin, mater. English, matter. That's mother. The primal substance of which all things are made. That's mother. According to C.M. Bay, the term Zodiac is supposed to be an old, ancient term. I can't prove that, nor can I disprove it. But I went to the library in Cleveland to verify, and what I found was the Latin word Zodiac, which is the Greco-Latin word for zodiac. Very key. Okay. I know there's at least one brother in here or sister in here who has been calling him or herself this particular name. Right? Is there Hebrew in you? Okay, did you write this down? Okay. This is a Greek word. Dr. Yakanan gave the correct articulation of the word in his book, Black Men of the Nile, and We the Black Jews. Haribu is the old African word. Those were Africans that saw them coming into the land of Africa out of the territory of Kush. Haribu. Now, it seems pretty standard that Yakanan will give a clarity on a concept but he doesn't give a definition of it. Okay, so you just have to assume that haribu means those wanderers, those who crossed over. Well, okay. This is what this word means. That's what it means. Now, how can I prove that? Take out a dollar. All you only have a dollar. Pull it out. Look on the reverse side of the dollar. Now look at the design around the lettering and so forth. What do you see? All right. See it there? Okay. Now, now the reason we know it's her in terms of her web is because this is her web. What I'm doing now is squaring the circle. Okay. That's one square. That's two squares. That's three squares. The Zodiac. That's her web. It's the Zodiac. The Zodiac represents the order of the universe. Not the solar system. The order of the universe. The universe is mental, says the Kybalion. The other key. The woman has 12 openings in her body. The male has 9. So if Adam came first, then he ought to have 12 openings. And he doesn't. Okay. This is Eve. Look at that word. That's Eve. 22. The master builder. The one who builds the house with no hands. That's Mama. Okay.
How you get 22?
That's what V equals. This is the letter V. That's all this is. That's the letter V. That's all it is.
Yes, that Roman number you're talking about.
No, those are Egyptian numbers in a Roman culture. Right. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, really, you saying with the V?
Yes, sir.
I read it in some other book where the V, and I think it was the K.
The K is 11.
The K is 11, and the V is what, 22?
That's right up there. But I'm telling you what it means, where it's coded, and understanding the order of nature, not the order of system. You can't get a woman from a man. You just can't do it. But we know we all came from a woman. Zodiac is the original woman where no man knows from whence she came in Masonic lore and Moorish science. The Divine Mother. The Lord was angry at the daughters of Israel for having made canker cakes to the Queen of Heaven. And the mother's so beautiful, she made God jealous. But that's esoterica. The hidden one, is the Divine Mother. As love is nowhere in sight down here. You know, we're almost devoid of it. And it's killing us because it's not here. But it is here. It's within, hidden. It needs to be drawn out. Educare, educate. Draw out that which is within. Very important to understand the very nature of things emanates from the idea of love and wisdom. So that in your periods of self-doubt, you don't lose your perspective about the primal cause's concern for your existence. Is always concerned, 24/7. Is always interested in you, 24/7. That's the Creator's nature, to be interested, concerned, and helpful. From the point of view of love, we best then appreciate what wisdom, knowledge, and power is for. It is not to beat down, to overwhelm, to control, all that Western left brain stuff this white boy done dropped on us. I think much of our violence is essentially out of fear and desperation. We as a people need to be healed. Okay, let me get back here because I don't want to lose sight. But you ladies, give consideration to the 12 openings in your physiology. They are symbological of your nature as the original blueprint of the functioning arm, leg, arm, head. Okay? Reminds me, let me get to this because I left this out before and it was supposed to be included in that part of the symbology. So I'm going to stick it right in here right now. I think I am trying to find it. It'd be easier for me just to show it rather than try to draw it again a little faster. This is Islam. You want to write these, draw these, or write these down? Let me put it up here so you can see it, and I'll explain it. Run out of tape again. ISLAM, the crescent and the star, I, in reference to the higher self, the spiritual I, both in terms of divine ego as I, as well as the spiritual pineal gland I. S, self, the building of the Pyramid of Giza represents the perfect body. In terms of Ephesians 3:14, towards the unity of the faith, to the measure, to the knowledge of the Son of God, to the measure of the fullness of the stature of Christ. A knowledge of the Son of God, the perfect man. the structure of that man, his stature, and his power. The blueprint of the divine Son is the idea of Christ, the Egyptian word for Christ, not the Greek word. The indestructible one is what Christ means. I, self-law, am master. I, self-law, am master. That's the science of Islam. That is not religion. Those are not Arabic characters. Those are English characters. Okay? Very important to make that distinction. Brothers in Orthodox Islam got on the brothers in Moorish science because they said they were perpetrating against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to clarify this until the brothers start looking behind the concepts to find the hidden knowledge. I, self, law, and master. That is what you're striving for. That's what gives you M-A-N, master, able, and noble, towards your divinity. G-O-D, generator, operator, destroyer, God. That's where you're supposed to be going. That's what it's about. That's why you're down here. To leave here with less than that is to have been ripped off, all the way off. Okay, because this is not our first time here. And if we got it done right before, we wouldn't be sitting in here. We'd be out there doing miracles and other wonderful things. So until you're able to do those wonderful things, keep meditating, keep studying yourself. It's a very excellent axiom in Drew Ali's little pamphlet. Brother man, my advice is that you go and study yourself. And when you finish studying yourself, go back and study yourself again. That's how deep you are. Very important to know that when you're talking about self, you're talking about God and the universe. They're one and the same. When you talk about divine nature, when you talk about the symbological representation of the message and the knowledge of the universe, you're talking about self. That's not selfish. That's wise. And we do need to be wise in this crazy era. Okay, you got those written down there?
What is it? 33, 33 and a 30?
Yeah, 33 and a third. That's when it's 33 and a third, that's Illuminati. When it's 333, that's what? Well, how much is 3, 3, and 3? And how much is 4 times 9?
36.
All right. And how much is 3 and 6? All right, you got the full circle. Again, that's science. That's the knowledge of self. The verse I was going to quote is dealing with that of squaring the circle. And as I pointed out, that gives you the concept of the Zodiac and her web. Hebrews are the ones who crossed over. The stars crossed over a point in time and space. That's the other level of the scriptures in terms of that particular period, which would have been the Taurian era or the Taurian age. Okay, well, I don't want to get too far from where I'm supposed to be going here with this. These 12 powers. "33 is the number of Christ, the vibration of the Christ mind. If it's in your chart, you need to get your chart done. You got something you need to know about. Anyhow, let's put this here. 20, as same with 22, the master builder. There's a spiritual power. When you find spiritual mastership numbers in your chart, in your name, that means you already have that power. You came back with it. Okay.
What about 11?
Yes, that's the first double number. That's the first mastership number of revelation. inner revelation, and the power of inspiration, among other things that we'll get to a little later. The 12 powers of man. You have 12 major organs in the body. And on those organs are 12 glands, major glands. Correctively, I'm supposed to have a pointer here. Don't have a pointer, so I'll use my finger. There actually are 14 major organs and 14 glands. There are 14 constellations in our universe. 12 were called out. How many disciples did Jesus have?
12.
No, he didn't. He had 13. He fired one. He called another one out. That made 14 with him. Mattathias, given wholly unto God. Judas Iscariot represents the natural fire in the vertebrae, the one that keeps getting us in trouble. That's Judas, the betrayer, brother. Okay. Yeah, well, he's replaced, which means spiritually your energy is replaced. In other words, instead of the natural biological fire, which is hot, you get cosmic fire. The fire you can't put out. The fire that cleans up the human man, the spiritual man, and the mental man. That's the fire we're trying to get to. You already got it. How to bring it up is the proposition. Well, let's get back up to the head here. We talked about the pineal gland, and usually the conversation is about the pineal gland in terms of its use in the mind. We're almost wholly impressed. If you concentrate on the third eye center, everything else will be all right. Well, that is partly true because it's essentially the general gland in the cranium head. But there are 5 of these. Let me at least show you the chart here. 5 of these faculties in the head and 7 in the body. Look like I'm hanging paper here instead of lecturing. I keep reaching into the paper. Each disciple in the scripture represents a particular power and ability. As Philip, for instance, is a name translated to lover of horses, which means power. Whenever you see the word power in the Bible or in any spiritual book, no matter whose book it is, it means power. The horse represents power. That's your throat chakra. After the heart center, we're going to work on the throat center because our spoken word is really out of order. We say the wrong things that tear up our world, that threatens both us and those in our world. We really need to keep in mind we are filled with a very unique substance already biologically functioning in our bodies that has power. That's melanin. It will either enhance your growth and development or tear up your growth and development. It is pure energy. It synthesizes your nervous system. It synthesizes your brain and all of the nerve centers and ganglions in the brain. All that yelling and screaming and raging our folks do. And the next time you see him, he's walking around talking all out his head. Tore up his own head. With the power that he's supposed to use, that she's supposed to use to bless her life, to bless those in her life, to heal herself, to heal those in her life. That's what power is for. It's to do good. The whole impetus of the universe is towards perfection. That means you have to do something right to get there. And to keep doing, I guess I'll just put over because let's put a temporal in. To keep doing something right is important. Now we're not going to cover these all at once. That would be academic approach. And we're not being academic here. We're trying to learn something and get something from these classes. We know about the third eye. We know about the pineal gland. We're going to talk about the throat chakra, the power of the spoken word, the power of proclamation, something we already do. We already make claims either for or against our own good. The energy here in this vocal center is where your spoken power center is. You're born with power. Those of you who are mothers know that when they hear the baby crying from 4 rooms away. That's energy, that's power, that's sound. That's what forms things in the mental realm in which we live, move, and have our being. That you can proclaim a thing in the spoken word manner and have that thing come into existence. That's the power you're born with and what you should be about educating. Drawing out and developing is the whole idea of spiritual practice. And that you're to come out of it with power. See? So you don't say, I don't have, I don't feel good, I got a headache. If you didn't, you'll end up with one. By your own thinking. There's an excellent example of that in the book of Ezekiel, where a spirit comes and yanks Ezekiel up out of his physical body and carries him by his spiritual hair and carries him to the side of the mountain and shows him what the Hebrew children are doing, sacrificing children. And the statement that is made by the angel is, look and see what they are doing to themselves. Very appropriate in understanding karma, in understanding how one takes through the misuse and misunderstanding of inherited power and uses it against himself as he abuses someone else. We live in a very organized, orderly universe that responds to your command. You're born as lords of the earth. Energy already does what you tell it to do. I can't remember. You remember saying that? And surely enough, after a while, you can't remember. What's my phone number? When it gets that bad. By programming your own brain to perform deficiently, your brain obeys the voice of God, your own voice. Does exactly what you tell it to do. If we understand that the process of our lives is about perfection, development, illumination, prosperity, perfect health, then we know we have to sack a whole vocabulary that's considered very hip. It is not so hip. 5 cents worth of wisdom in that language out there in the street. Thought is power. Your energy follows your thoughts. Your thoughts will not come back to you void, but they will come back to you. I won't cite any more negatives. It's important that you know you can create with your spoken word, that you can heal with your spoken word. Some talk to flowers to get good flowers to grow. You're supposed to talk to your body. You're supposed to talk to your mind. That's real prayer. Claiming, explaining what you want, how you want it to function, what state you see it in, that you are perfectly happy, perfectly prosperous, and in perfect harmony with the universe. That's Moorish thought. That's divine talk. That's coming from your own spiritual center. If your head hurts, don't say it does. You begin using just the reverse of what the condition is that you don't want. Catherine Rootmore, the author of this book here, in her practicing years of study, got into a financial bind one day. She opened up the icebox and it wasn't filled up. She had 4 kids up there. And she went and she washed the dishes real good. And all the while she's making this abundant affirmation, claiming the abundance that God has given her and thanking her all the time. She does this around 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. She says, puts the plates on the table, the napkins and the forks. Nothing in the icebox. This woman is setting this table for her kids and herself. And she calls them over to the table and says, "Now sit down, sit down." She gives thanks for this food. I know the kids thought she was rich. You know? Just as she finished her affirmation, somebody knocked on the door. 5 bags of groceries. You know? She said, "Thanks, come on in." She was expecting it. That's positive thinking. That's a metaphysical mind. But you don't see the appearance of things. You see what you want. You claim what you want. You claim how you want the conditions, the circumstances to be. That is the Lord of the earth. By your thinking, you make it so. I'm not talking what you're going to do later on. You're already doing it. Is it okay? That's how the mind works. That's how energy works when guided by one of these faculties. Because it's also true of the imagination. I think I mentioned this before. Probably the most popular one is Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill's statement that he gives in the other book because he wanted to make some more money on the same information. The only reason I could think you, the reason he wrote the book, Think and Grow Rich with Peace of Mind, which was almost a duplication of his first book that won all kinds of popularity. But in that book he gives the affirmation, whatever the mind conceives and believes the mind can achieve. And it's an excellent maxiom. The one that is most important in terms of imagination is the one from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. The psychological assumption, write this down. The psychological assumption automatically provides the means to fulfill the dream desire. The psychological assumption automatically provides the means to fulfill the dream desire. That's how the mind works.
Provide the means
To fulfill the dream desire, whatever the desire is. The dream desire is the desire that you have already visualized. You don't just dream laying down, we dream walking, sitting, standing, and talking. To picture and to desire is what makes a thought real and allows it to happen. I got up one morning, went to school, and the principal stopped me in the hallways. He was there talking, and said, Freeman, I heard you running around bragging you're going to jump 7 feet next week. I said, that's right, Father, and I ran up the steps. No, he said 6, 7. And I ran up the steps and went to class. All that day, in the back of my head, I kept seeing myself jumping over walls and cellar doors. There's a big brick wall I passed by walking to school every day. I could see myself jumping over this big tall wall as a 10th grader. These ideas stayed in my consciousness. I wasn't consciously doing that. That Saturday, went down to the track meet, made a little mark on the ground, and my coach had put the bar at 7 feet. And I backed up and got a little exercise. And I mean, it's one of those wonderful days where everything was supposed to go right. And I just felt like whatever, because he didn't tell me what it was. The guy who was in charge of the jumping bar, just as I got ready to take off from my mark, said, hey, Shans, you sure you want this bar at 7 feet? And only my knees trembled. Just my knees, nothing else. You know? And there was no fear up here. Just my knees. You know? It was interesting. You know? The only part of my body that got frightened were my knees. You can't jump without your knees. And the reason I know Shans had planned on it because he said, oh, shh, and spit on the ground and went over. And I thought he was going to slap the dude, but he didn't. So they brought it down. It looked like they put it on the ground. Put it at 6, 7. But this assuming that I had been doing all week was in the back of my subconscious. And it was such a remarkable kind of thing because it was all happening from somewhere in the back of me. I don't know if you've ever had that experience. When I jumped and got up over the bar, I hung over the bar with one leg. They use what they call the California belly roll. You went over with one leg this way first, then you get over the bar and you turn your arm and then your leg, raise your leg up. And I hung on top of the bar like that and just pulled my leg over the bar. I glazed the bar. In other words, I jumped exactly 6, 7. You know, not a 1/10 of an inch more. You know. And when I got over the bar, I just zoom, felt like a ton of bricks. It was all from a subconscious level. But it was a psychological assumption that made that possible. Because I didn't know about anything about the principles at that time. In re-evaluating some of the events of my lives, come to discover that's how we accomplish or how we fail. You cannot afford to imagine failure. You cannot afford to imagine poverty. That's what David is saying when he says, why doeth the people imagine a vain thing? You know? It is vanity to be poor in a universe that's full of wealth, full of power, full of knowledge. The illusion of inferiority is an abomination to the Lord. We don't need that. We are required to think well of ourselves if we are made in the image of God. And we are. If we're made in the likeness of God. That's what this is about in terms of the likeness of God. The nature of God is the likeness of God. Your spiritual faculties is what we need access to change our human status. From the point of view of positive thinking and positive speaking, they are one and the same thing. You don't have to speak it out to have it happen. You can speak it in your head because you live in mind. The same mind that is out here is in our consciousness. The brain is in our head. The mind is from the crown of the head to the soles of the feet. Your feet represent understanding. All of the nerve endings of the brain and the spinal cord end up in our feet. We do what? We understand. So good feet are important because it tells you something about your brain. But it's vice versa. If your feet hurt all the time, you need more knowledge. And a better pair of shoes, probably. But to understand that we are spiritually designed tells us that spirituality is natural to man. And religion is added as a substitute towards that spirituality, not vice versa. The minister is saying that you're here to serve the Lord. Well, the Creator has already explained you're here to become the Lord. And that's two different kind of beings. Well, one is a beggar, and the other is a doer. We need to become doers. It's very important because we are an oral people that we groom this center with this power. When you speak to someone, you send them your energy. You know, all that negative stuff goes right into that person. I was talking to a buddy of mine in the car, and he was explaining to me something about something this woman said to him. And I turned around and said, I won't even say what I said. I said something and that energy went right into his solar plexus and hurt his stomach so bad he was bending over, driving the car. Almost made him sick. And we knew better. I'm emphasizing this because we are oral. We are speakers. What we need to do is to bless each other rather than curse and criticize each other. Rather than talking about each other, we ought to talk for each other. That if you have an altar in your home, you should have one there that you can see and one that you cannot see. The invisible altar is the one that is moving in mind, where your thoughts are. That's what is molding your world. Your altar of thoughts, of love, of kindness, of compassion, of understanding, of appreciation, of confidence, concern, inspiration and aspiration. Your passion for life, to succeed, to succeed, to succeed. Those are the things that should be driving us, not football. We need to re-win the things that were taken from us. We've already won back the right to be human. We lost that. I mean, they were writing this stuff, the KKK. They're not even human. You read some of that stuff out of the KKK, man. Whew, wow. But we had lost those privileges. And it is a privilege, said a Sufi master, to be human. Because there are some other things down here too. But it is a privilege. Because in that developmental state, you have access to becoming God. The real privilege. And I'm very serious about this idea of Godhood. You know, I'm not going to be talking just to be saying something. That's our reality. Those ideas should motivate your chemistry. To think of how exciting it is to become God. That's what Father Divine did. Nobody shot him. Nobody ran him out of the country. Now, they were throwing him out of church when he first came to Chicago. He had another brother with him, I think it was named Edwards, who had the awesome habit of going around. That's where he met. I think his name was Major or something before he became Father of the Valley. Met him in the church, and his one brother was a student and practitioner of metaphysics, and was trying to explain to this fundamentalist holding this congregation that he was the Lord. They threw him out of the church and threw Father Divine out with him. And this isn't something you go around announcing. And that's where I think he met this brother, and how he got into yoga, metaphysics, theosophy. I mean, the brother studied. And the legend of Father Divine is one of remarkability, because he did a lot of things for America. He came like right at the tail end of the Depression, and he was such a big spirit that he would help anybody. And that's what God does. And for whatever strange reason, I guess it was his karmic pattern at that time. He married a European woman, and he had a mansion. And it was supposed to be a non-sexual marriage, a spiritual marriage. Anyway, he drove through the streets of Alabama with his European wife in a black Cadillac, and kind of like a parade, you know. And the Westerners are standing outside there looking at him, and he stood up in his car. Nobody said a word. Nobody threw a stone. So it was God standing there. But I'm just trying to point out that it's real. I'm convinced that Elijah Muhammad reached his godhood. Nobody shot him. Nobody stopped his organization. Nobody undermined his stuff. He died with flowers and friends around him. Yeah. What comes with godhood is the divine umbrella that protects you from the exterior world. Noble Raleigh did not have that. Yes, sir.
Elijah Mama went to the hospital in the room and giving him something to
Speed him on.
speed him on.
Maybe so, I don't know.
Since he's dealing with them, it seems to me you shouldn't turn to your oppressor if you need some help. You have to turn to somebody that might help you if you don't trust him.
Well, I think that has much to do with one knowing one's karmic pattern. If it was time for him to leave, and he was willing to leave, then it doesn't matter. There's nothing he can do about it. Yes, sir.
As a matter of fact, to elaborate on that, there was a story of a prostitute that went to a congressional party that the senators was having in D.C. And she had the nerve to ask this time, "What are you all partying about?" And they told him that we've just killed Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the messenger. We've killed the messenger. And she said, "Who is the messenger?" They said, "Elijah Muhammad." And this was long before he died. So, come to find out, because of the one meal a day, the stuff actually washed out of his bodies when they injected him with this poisons. It washed right out of his body. Based upon how high he was, based on his diet, it didn't even affect him.
Yeah.
But
I was going to mention that at a certain point of development, you have command over the exterior world. Poison isn't poison for you. That's right there in the Bible, in Mark. And they can drink poison, and it won't kill them. You get another kind of nature, another kind of chemistry. You get real power. There is no such thing as incurable disease. No such thing. What it appears is going on with the human being on this planet is he's dying and catching diseases because he thinks he's supposed to die and is convinced he's capable of catching diseases. The very idea of the word itself tells us that we're talking about dis-ease. Again, bringing it back to mind, to the mental plane. That's what pollutes the mind. And the mind, in turn, pollutes the body, because the mind makes chemistry. Thought makes chemistry. The easiest thing in the world to verify is with a lemon. You don't even need to bite a lemon, just hold it up. It begins to make a citric acid chemistry in your own mouth, just looking at it. That's thought. It's a picture. It's an image. All thought makes chemistry. Chemistry is what causes the body to respond. The adrenaline overflow for the excited state, the fight, the run, the chase, the game. A thought. This is your level of mastership. The mind. Superman. That's where you're supposed to be going. While the European is becoming you. Because that's what they're doing. You're supposed to be becoming G-O-D. With a perfect mind. A mind that knows no disease, no sickness, no fear, no ignorance, no foolishness, and no poverty. That's what's available to the black man and black woman in America right now. Not when you get old. Now. Every day. If you work with the process of affirmation, 45 times is the vibration of turn, of angle. By repeating an affirmation 45 times, you fix it in consciousness. By repeating an affirmation 45 times, you fix it in consciousness so that it is already working, whatever that affirmation might be. By collaborating your spoken word with your affirmation idea and your imagination, you bring your idea to a state of manifestation by coupling your spoken word with your affirmation and your imagination. You bring your wish desire into manifestation, whatever it is. Repeat that. By coupling your thought with your imagination and your affirmation. In other words, don't see something you want and say, I wish I had it. And then de-affirm the possibility that you can have it by saying, I can't afford it. And then wonder why you feel so confused. You're going in 3 different directions. There it is, I can't get it. Wish I could. What is that? But that's scattered thinking. It is to affirm it. It's to claim it. Yes. It's to affirm it. It's to claim it. That's right. What is pointed out in this new study of the African's brain is that we have the highest development of the right hemisphere of the brain of the human race. That the whole culture of the ancient Egyptian, so-called Egyptian, of Egypt, tells us of this extraordinary artistic endeavor of a whole people. And the beauty of that art, and the emphasis on beauty, and knowledge is what our past is telling us. The kind of mentality we have inherited from our ancestors. The kind of imagination we have inherited from our ancestors. The kind of sense of rhythm we have inherited. 2, 4, 6, 8 instead of 1, 3, 5, 7. The universe is 2, 4, 6, 8. Rhythm is very important. We'll get to the law of rhythm. The power center at the throat. By your spoken words, you open it up. Many, I almost said most, I don't know most, many singers automatically open up their power center just because they sing and use that faculty a great deal. That doesn't mean because they sing, it means that they're doing all positive thought, though. So some of them have been terribly unhappy people with their wonderful talent. And I don't think they should have been if they'd had self-knowledge. We're going to use some affirmations. I'm going to let us out here early because I know some of you, the Super Bowl football fans, are right here in this room. So I make provision to get back to your TV before 6. I think it starts at 6 or something like that. There is the corpus geminia in the brain that is not in this book. It's in the occult literature. If you want to know how to create on the screen of imagination, and this is important for us because we are imaginative. The corpus geminia, it's called. It's a very small faculty. I think I got it up here. I don't have it before that. On the front of the brain. That's where you make the image that you want. We already do that. You see, very interesting thing the little guy does when he's threatened by the big guy. Talking about the junior high school boy, the little boy who's learning how to be a man in the 8th grade, 9th grade. And he goes home, on his way home, after he's over this frightening experience of almost getting stomped. He walks up the street and he keeps seeing himself kicking this big dude's butt in his mind. He makes the pictures. He sets up the circumstances. He sets up the events, all in his creative realm, in his creative world. He then is Lord of the plane of mind. He sees himself winning. He's no longer afraid. There's no bully in his world. He's master in his world. You do the same thing when you have something you want to sell. When you have a product that you want spread, you mentally spread it by creating the circumstances consciously. That then is your psychological assumption. You place it on the mental plane, seeing the events taking place on the mental plane, and you affirm it on the plane of power, the power of the spoken word, as you psychologically accept it as a reality. That's for anything in this universe you want, except some other human being. Okay? You can't have anybody you want. But any object Any idea is open for grabs, provided it does not already belong to someone else. Following the nature of the law does not take and give. The nature of the law of the universe only gives. The nature of God only gives. The nature of love only gives. So the brother who says, I love you, baby, you love me, he's out of order. You're only responsible for loving. You're not responsible for finding out who loves you. Love only goes one way. There's no give and take in love. There's only giving. That's the universe. That's its nature. The power of the mind. Very important. Very important. Okay, we're gonna. Okay, here. Let me. Since this 33's up here, let me deal with this as I mentioned. That's the Christ mind. This represents this center here, the crown center. Here up is supermind. Everything up here is perfect. You don't need to develop anything up here. It's already up there. That's your heaven on the earth. That's the divine mind. All of the information from up there is correct and perfect. Power is up there. Miraculous power, magical power, healing power. When you imagine from up here, whatever you imagine from there happens instantly. That's how powerful the image-making mechanism faculty of the mind is. The instant healings of the masters was done with thought, power, perfect imagination. It's a part of your natural makeup. Sleeping in the boat. Go wake it up. Begin with the heart center to get some clear perspective about love, selflessness, giving instead of receiving first.